Hello and welcome to A Homespun House. My name is Molly and I am the dyer, creator, maker behind A Homespun House, and I'm really happy to have you here with me today. I'm just taking a bit of time to listen to what I've been up to this week and for the past couple of weeks because it has been quite a long time. We took a very last minute trip to America and we're there for about 2 weeks, and it was really nice to be there and see my family and just spend time. So the shop had to be closed down for a little while, and it's opened again, which is very exciting. It's nice to be back in Berlin, but as I said, it was really nice to visit family. I didn't get a lot of knitting done while I was there, but the plane ride to and a little bit from, I was able to get a little bit of knitting in. I have been doing a bit of knitting, seeing as though it's been quite a long time. I also want to mention that you're probably going to be hearing some background noise because we have Robert's family here. His mom and dad are here, and our nephew will be coming soon and spending the night along with his parents, and then his sister and her husband. So it definitely is going to be a full house come a bit of time. Because it's been so long, it can be hard to remember exactly what I have finished or even what I've worked on in the time being from this episode to the last episode. One thing that I definitely know that I finished, and these are looking very worse for wear. I'm almost a little bit ashamed to show them. Not ashamed, maybe a little bit embarrassed, just because Robert has worn them so much. And again, this is from the February Yarn and Charm Club. So if you have not received yours yet, look away for just a minute. I won't show these for too long. And the yarns for these are actually swapped. I'm about to show them. So they are, the main colorway for the February Yarn and Charm Club was this, and this colorway was called Promises to Keep. And I used this for the cuffs, heels, and toes of Robert's socks. And you can see he has worn these a lot since I finished them. I think I finished them shortly after the last podcast. And then this colorway is Woods, because this colorway was inspired by one of my Grandma Sue and my favorite poems by Robert Frost. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, and I have promises to keep. And so that one line, which is repeated a little bit in the poem, inspired this, and it came with a little cup of tea or apple cider. It could be kind of whatever you want or your preferred drink, with a little peppermint stick and then a pine tree cookie. Those were done by Sugar Miniatures, and I love the way that the yarn turned out. I love the way that these socks turned out. Robert is such a fan of these, and he has already chosen yarn for his next pair of socks, which he would like to be knit on the 20% cashmere base, which is totally fine. It's a 70-20-10 merino cashmere and then nylon. And I love knitting with it, so I'm not complaining. This took about 150 grams of sock yarn, and his next pair, he would like the legs to be even this much longer. So these are going to be almost a 200 gram skein pair of socks. I feel like they're bigger than my head. But Robert's very tall. He's 6'5.5", and he wears a 13.5 shoe size. So I haven't started these yet, but because I'm talking about Robert's socks, I want to show you the yarn that I've chosen for his next pair of socks. When I initially cast on his Promises to Keep and socks, I first cast on the green, so the Woods colorway. And then I decided that I wanted this to be the main color of the sock, and so I just took it off, and I have enough to make one more cuff. And that's all that's left of this green. So I decided that I'm going to knit the cuffs with this just to use it all. I don't really like having a lot of leftover yarn. I much prefer finishing a project and having the yarn be gone. So this will be the cuff, and then the main foot of the sock is going to be this colorway. It's a really beautiful pink, salmon pink, almost neon toned pink, with flashes of black, brown, navy, orange, neon pink again, a little bit of purple, quite deep plum shades of purple, and then that amazing neon orange. So this was actually a skein that was dyed for a shawl that I am currently knitting for Robert. These two colors. Robert had told me some inspiration for a shawl that he really wanted. And first he thought that he would want these two colors. You'll hear all about this later. It ended up not working. And he decided that they would make pretty amazing socks. So this will be the heel and toe, and then this will be the entire foot and leg of the sock. So I think that is going to look pretty neat. I'm very excited to get working on those. I think those will be cast on pretty soon. On this topic of socks, in my Little Bobbins collaborative bag that we designed together and that Danny made for one of my kits, I have my Deathly Hallows socks that I'm knitting. I do quite a lot of Harry Potter themed yarns and clubs and minis for the shop because I really enjoy Harry Potter, to put it lightly. One of the ideas that I came up with not too long ago was a Deathly Hallows set, be it mini skeins or a sock set, or you could use it for a shawl. And I wanted to do a large skein of the invisibility cloak and then two smaller 20-gram skeins of the resurrection stone and then the elder wand. And I decided to knit socks with mine. I'm very happy with the way that these are turning out. It is a completely different dye technique than I normally dye up. I usually do quite a speckled technique. I have done more variegated yarns, but this one is so heavily variegated. It has so many layers to it. I'm sure you'll see when I show this to you, or as I'm showing it to you, all of the depth of color. It's such a fun one to dye, but it is so extensive and takes so much time that this is one that I think will always only be offered for pre-order, simply because of that. So here's the elder wand, here is the invisibility cloak, and then for the heel and toe, I don't have the toe finished yet. I don't have that many more rounds until I get to the toe, to be honest. I'm going to do the resurrection stone. So I'm very, very happy with the way that these socks are turning out. I did want to mention that I have been loving the heel flap and gusset lately. I didn't talk about it when I showed you Robert's socks, but the Fish Lips Kiss heel isn't really a heel that works for him. The gusset of his foot is definitely thicker from, the top of it to his heel than the rest of his foot, and then going up until his leg, that he needs those extra stitches for the gusset to make it fit his leg properly and slimly without too much negative ease, which is what the Fish Lips Kiss heel gives. So I knit a heel flap and gusset for his socks, and I thought it looked so beautiful that I really wanted to knit my next pair of socks with the heel flap and gusset. I feel like I really got on a Fish Lips Kiss heel craze and excitement over it just because you knit the heel. There's absolutely no gusset shaping. You're just concentrating while you're knitting the heel. And then you get to knit, 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 knit. And if you have a pair of stripy socks or any sort of sock where pooling is a possibility, the Fish Lips Kiss heel is really quite lovely because the same stitches never change from the leg to the foot because there absolutely is no gusset shaping. The same amount of stitches always remains. Now that could change if you decide to do the Fish Lips Kiss heel in the same yarn. as you are knitting your entire sock, because it kind of switches up the way that the stitches are laid out on your knitting. But it really is great for stripy socks and things like that. I wasn't caring with the sock, and it honestly didn't really mess up the way that it looks. While this is a very heavily variegated yarn, I'm really happy with it, and it was a lot of fun to knit. So this is one that I'm just using now for my nighttime knitting, and I have the most adorable little chocolate frog from Sucre Miniatures right here. I really love these. They're amazing. And I do have listings up currently for the Harry Potter Yarn and Charm Club for April, May, June. That will be this round with Sucre Miniatures. The round that I did previously was with Simply Serving, and there unfortunately will be no more Simply Serving a Homespun House Yarn and Charm Clubs. Lindsay doesn't have enough time to do such extensive orders, and so she had to drop out of doing those sorts of clubs. So it's with Sucre Nut from now on, which I'm really looking forward to, because I do really enjoy working with Chelsea from Sucre Miniatures. She's such a warm, friendly person, and the charms that we have going on for April, May, June Harry Potter Yarn and Charm Club are not going to disappoint. And the monthly charms that we have planned for monthly Yarn and Charm Clubs are very exciting as well. Well, speaking of Yarn and Charm Clubs, I just mentioned that Harry Potter is up currently. There are only a specific amount of spots for the charms for the Harry Potter Yarn and Charm Club, but then I also have spots for people who solely want the yarn or aren't able to get the charm. You don't want to miss out on it, I promise. It's really exciting. Harry Potter Yarn and Charm Club, I think, is my favorite one to dye up because, as I mentioned when I mentioned the Deathly Hallows kits and many, many numerous other Harry Potter kits that I have in yarns in the shop, I really enjoy Harry Potter. I think about it often. I sometimes joke with my husband that Harry Potter is a lifestyle. It's something that, it's the most awesome thing when you're around people and it comes up in random conversation and people just use Harry Potter lingo or compare things to things in Harry Potter. While we were in America, we were having a conversation with a family, and one woman was just comparing kind of her lifestyle to Hogwarts. And it was so awesome because it's like you just assume that I know what Hogwarts is, and it was just a really, really neat experience to have because, as a total tangent, I don't normally have Harry Potter conversations with random people, so that was really neat. I currently have listings up for the March Yarn and Charm Club. The charm is currently sold out, unfortunately, so for those of you who are just looking forward to getting some great yarn, that's still for sale and will be up for sale for just a little bit now. I'll be closing it in a while. The next thing that I have been working on that I have been enjoying so much is a pullover for Ruby. I have a cardigan that my grandma knit. I don't even know when, to be honest. It has to be out of an acrylic yarn, but it still is a beautiful cardigan. It's a Scandinavian style blue with a white yarn, and it's Fair Isle. And so I love this cardigan so much that I wanted to kind of adapt it and make it into a pullover on much finer needles. I'm using 3 and 2.5 millimeter needles, which I believe is a size 2 and 3 millimeter needle, or US 2 and 3 for the cardigan. So it's pullover actually, so it's quite fine. I'm again using the Bakken base, which is that 20% cashmere, 70% superwash merino, and 10% nylon. And I'm knitting this out of this beautiful colorway, which Ruby picked out. I'll have this in the shop next week, along with so much more yarn. You guys are not going to know what to do with yourself. This will be my biggest update ever I think I probably have about 2,000 skeins that will be listed to the shop this week. So if you are wanting any of my colorways, there are pretty much sweater quantities of everything. As a side note, tonal, speckles, variegated, what have you. Whimsy colorways. Just a heads up, if you see colorways that say whimsy on them, and there are numerous colorways that say whimsy, it isn't a mistake. Whimsy are colorways that are created on a whim, and they're all one-of-a-kind colorways. So while there may be 5, 10, 15 skeins of a whimsy colorway, they're colorways that won't be produced again. So if you like one, snag it up. Anyway, this is not a whimsy colorway. This is a colorway that Ruby chose of all of my yarns, and she decided that she wanted her pullover to be out of this. So I did a tubular cast on, a knit one, purl one rib. This is my own pattern. I am not writing it down. It's not one that I will be selling. I am just solely basing it off of a cardigan, as I mentioned, that my grandma knit that I really loved and I wanted to recreate. So then I did a little cable down the raglan sides, which is pretty much the same cable that she did. The cable that she has going down her raglan increases is a 5-stitch cable, which is quite strange. I did a 6-stitch cable, cabling every 4 rows. And I believe hers was maybe every 8 rows. It was definitely a little bit bigger, the cables were, or longer. And I wanted to do just an even number of stitches. The 5-stitch cable was a little strange for my mind, not gonna lie. I've done all of the increases, and now I'm to a place where I have put all of the sleeve stitches on hold, and I've just started knitting the body of the pullover. This is top down, obviously, and I'm really enjoying it now that I'm down to the bottom section of it. I knit these, I knit this pullover on, like I said, 3.5 millimeter needle. I think before I said that I was knitting these on a 3 millimeter needle. I am knitting them on a 3.5. The ribbing was a 2.5 indeed. And I'm using Knit Pro Zings. Knit Pro Zings, knitting magic loop was not something that I enjoyed for make one left, make one right in this fingering weight cashmere yarn. I have been using Haya sharps for a different project, and this project that I'm using the Hayas for has a make one left, make one right, and it is so effortless, which makes it extremely enjoyable to knit. And every time, which was every other round when you're knitting a raglan pullover, that I had to do the make one left and make one rights, and I had to do them 8 times. It was not enjoyable at all. So I am happy to have that finished. I am very happy with the way that it looks, for sure. I love these little cables going down the side. I think they're dainty, delicate, and absolutely sweet. I think Ruby's going to love this and look adorable in it. But I'm very happy now to just be knitting in stockinette. Once I get to a couple of inches before the ribbing, I'm going to do a Scandinavian style heart color work panel, and I'm going to do that at the base of the sleeves as well. I'll show you that pullover in the next podcast because I don't have it on hand at this moment. And maybe I'll even have the bottom of this finished. So I'm not sure how long I'm going to knit this. If I want to do it a little bit oversized, I probably will, just because I would like this to fit Ruby all the way up until 2019 winter. I'm really excited to knit on this. I just wish that I didn't have to knit it magic loop. I wish I had a smaller circumference of a circular needle. I do, they're bamboo, so I know that that would really change up the gauge. So I'm just going to have to continue knitting this magic loop on my Knit Pro Zings. And next time I make Ruby a sweater, I most definitely am going to get a smaller Progress Keeper. Or not Progress Keeper. I'm speaking ahead with my thoughts. I was just thinking about my adorable Sucra confetti donut that was one of my monthly Yarn and Charm Club's one of the progress keepers for that. And then over here, I have this really sweet knitting jewelry, as Amber calls it, from Maker's Haven, of this pretty little butterfly. Both of these progress keepers mark something different. And then I have this pretty stitch marker, which marks the beginning of my row, from Amber of Maker's Haven as well. I love that. I think she makes probably the most beautiful beaded knitting jewelry. So I have 2 skeins of this set aside, the one I'm currently knitting and then an extra one just to be safe in case I need it for Ruby, because when I knit the pullover for Elodie and Ruby out of the Yesterday's Laundry colorway, which I've already mentioned, Robert felt it, shrunk, and it's in the garbage and long gone now. I used 1.5 skeins of that, so I'm thinking I'll probably need 2 for this. And that is a shawl for Roberts. This is the 3rd attempt of this shawl. I am knitting up something that I designed. It has to have been 2 years now, called the Alpine Shawl. And the reason why I'm knitting this, 1 is because Robert really wanted a triangular shawl, and 2 because I think the Alpine Shawl is a super versatile shawl. It's one that men and women very, very easily can wear. The first time I knit it for Robert, I showed you guys the yarn. It was out of my ash colorway and rose gold colorway in singles. I knit a bit of that up, decided it wasn't right. Robert decided that rather. And then I knitted out of the 2 colorways that you previously saw that I'm going to be knitting into socks for Robert. Robert decided again that wasn't right. And then we came to these colorways. So all of these colorways will be for sale in the shop if you guys want to knit up a shawl for yourselves, for your significant others, for anyone. And now, this is the final one that we've decided and love for Robert. This is a really beautiful blue-toned gray tonal yarn with different flecks of this insanely bright blue, mustards, Dijon yellows. It has beautiful striking pinks, and I really love it. So right now we're just working the bigger stripes, and then we're getting down into this garter panel, and this is about 1/3 of the way finished, the garter panel. It'll continue, and then it will go on to a textured section, which will be in this deep blue, which is the water reservoir colorway from a Homespun house. So I am very excited. All of the yarns that I've shown so far are all a Homespun house yarns. And then here I have the Progress Keeper from January's Harry Potter Yarn and Charm Club. This is just the shrunken head that hangs in the bus in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban in the film. This little character does not exist in the books. I know I usually tend to go from the books to keep it real to Harry Potter, you know, the way it was originally written and thought out. But Robert had the idea of making the Progress Keeper of him, who says, "Take it away, Anne." And we just thought that it would be a really fun Progress Keeper. I know he's big, and I've heard people say that he's maybe too big to use as a Progress Keeper, but I don't think at all. I think he's super light, and he doesn't pull on my stitches one bit, and I just think he looks awesome. I will definitely always use him as a Progress Keeper. I definitely have had charms that are quite large and have thought there's no way I'm using this as a Progress Keeper. But as big as this is, it's very light, and if you have it on a large project, it doesn't seem hefty or large at all. Anyway, so I think the reason why the movie used him in the movie is because in the book there is a photograph that hangs in the bus, and he talks a little bit to the driver, and I think that they wanted to make that a little bit more tangible. And so they made this shrunken head hanging in the window. So while this isn't the exact replica of the book version of the man that speaks to the bus driver in The Night Bus. The yarn was called The Night Bus. I didn't bring a skein in here to show you, but I still thought he was an awesome idea for a charm. And February's yarn is hanging next to me, loads of it, and I have pots surrounding me which simply need to be washed, soaked, hung, dried, labeled, etc. And it's pretty amazing. I had somebody ask if they should maybe wait and save their skeins of yarn to knit them into a cohesive piece, a shawl, a sweater, what have you. You could, but I don't think I would recommend it at all. First of all, the bases are not going to be the same. Usually when I do Harry Potter yarn and charm clubs, there are 3 separate bases for every installment, just because I think it's fun to kind of get a little grab bag, especially for people who are new to a homespun house, to get different kinds of yarns. It's always fingering weight yarn, but the bases, like I said, will always be different. So you might get a cashmere fingering weight yarn, you might get an 80-20 merino nylon, or a 75-25 merino nylon, or a BFL yarn, or even a gold stellina yarn. The BFL and gold stellina, I don't do those as commonly because I know that those aren't necessarily people's favorite. It's a very popular yarn in the shop, but I know that those are not everybody's taste. So I tend to do them very, very sparingly, and if they like scream the colorway to me. But anyway, so this is the beginning of Robert's Alpine Shawl, and I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. And this is the shawl that I am knitting out of my Haya Sharps. First time I've ever used these is with this project. They're interchangeables. They're really interesting because they swivel. And I'm knitting these with a 3.5 or US 4. I love these. I am highly considering getting an interchangeable kit because they're so fantastic. I want to show you guys my bag because I feel like everybody is on this enamel pin craze, and I've had these on my bag for quite some time. And these are mostly all a Homespun House pins. 2 that I have that are from other dyers are here from Sandy by the Lakeside, and then this one is a junk yarn pin. This one was a gift. This one is from my mom, coffee in one hand, oils in the other, and then all of the other ones are a Homespun House charms. And I could not love them more. I really need to list these in the shop. If only there were enough time in the day for everything. And that's what I've been working on. So it's a little bit crazy because everything that's on my needles is new, which is really exciting. It's so fun to be casting new things on. I am now in the place where I desperately want to knit a sweater. Christy Glass just had an interview that she came out with from Loopy Mango, and they have the most amazing chunky sweater designs. I must admit though that I am so absolutely bummed that you have to buy their yarn to purchase their pattern, because some of their cardigans that are made out of their huge loopy chunky yarn are absolutely stunning, and it's very difficult to find an extremely bulky pattern for bulky yarn on Ravelry. I can't find anything that I absolutely adore because I want something that's kind of simple and super wearable. I think I want a dropped sleeve pullover. I don't want something raglan style. And the Loopy Mango has a few pretty amazing, I think the Her cardigan is one that I'm obsessing over quite a bit. I think I could probably look at the pattern and create something by myself based upon it, but I don't want to think about the pattern. I really would love to have somebody think for me. And I want to knit this just massive, oversized, bulky cardigan. I have the yarn for it. I want to do a bulky weight yarn with a mohair, and I'll share that with you next episode. I hope that I find something or have something cast on that could be finished in a week. How amazing would that be? Pretty amazing. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I have so much yarn going into the shop. Literally so much yarn going into the shop. There are pre-orders for the Deathly Hallows sock sets. I don't think I mentioned that. I talked about them, but I didn't say that pre-orders were open. Some of the yarn going into the shop, and I just grabbed a quick little handful, is Xenophilius Explains the Deathly Hallows. This will be pretty much on every single base possible. Same with all of these. Pygmy Puff. And there will be coordinating tonals for all of these sorts of yarns. If you are a bird, I'm a bird. Heart-shaped box. Pop art. I recently finished a pair of socks out of this and Mermaid of the Black Lake. I don't have a skein of Mermaid of the Black Lake to show, but pop art is such a cool colorway. It's okay to be alone. And that's all that I've grabbed for you today. I should have grabbed tonals that could go with those, but I think if you have a look in the shop under tonals, you will see a lot of them and they're pretty easy to pair together. You can always write me for suggestions if you're curious as to what tonals work really, really well with specific colorways. I'm happy to answer those. And yeah, I'm so excited to get dyeing this week. There will be 2 pre-orders for colorways going up into the shop, just normal colorways. One of those is going to be Xenophilius Explains the Deathly Hallows. And then It's Okay to Be Alone. So those 2 will be the new pre-orders that go up on Monday, along with heaps and heaps of yarn. The shop will be fully updated with pre-orders. I have a new Harry Potter mini set, which is extremely fantastic. I made a mini set based upon all of the Harry Potter yarns that I currently have in the shop. You can pick if you want this on Stellina, Plump Merino, or Soft Sock. And here I have Half-Blood Prince, Mermaid of the Black Lake, After All This Time, Pygmy Puff, and Xenophilius Explains the Deathly Hallows. This set here is currently on the Stellina base. So there will be a lot of these going in the shop. If they sell out, they will have to be put up for pre-orders. So anyway, it was so fantastic talking with you today. I'm happy to be back, happy to be chatting with you all, happy to be home working on some knitting projects, getting back to dyeing yarn for the shop. And if you want to keep up with me on Instagram, I do stories regularly, so you can go ahead and check those out. Until next time, bye.